Good morning, kind people of the internet. Today I want to give you a little behind the scenes look at how I compose music for my big band. But first I have a few other things I need to get done. I need to clean out a closet, cut the grass, go for a swim, do some practicing, do some email administrative type work, and record a video lesson. So let's do all that first. Ready, go. So I'm at the piano and I'm going to try to do a little bit of composing. Excuse me. I guess I don't really try to think of it as composing per se, because that kind of puts pressure on it. For me, anytime I put pressure on it, it usually doesn't go as well as if I'm just trying to enjoy the process of creating. If I say composing, it makes it somewhat more formal and forced. And also when I do that, it kind of, I think, subconsciously makes me feel like I need to follow a certain set of rules, which usually is not productive or helpful. So I'm at the piano. All I have is my pencil. This is a book of manuscript paper, just blank music sheets. I have my phone, which is on airplane mode. The only reason I have this is to use the voice memo recording app. In case I come up with something that I don't want to write down, I can just record it and then maybe like reference it later. I usually like fill up my phone with recordings. There's probably like almost 1,000 just short, like maybe 1 or 2 minute recordings that I've made when I'm practicing or trying to compose or, whatever. So what I want to do, and sometimes it's always a little bit different. Sometimes I'll sit down with a goal in mind, like maybe I want to try to harmonize a particular line or come up with like a bridge to a tune or try to come up with a melody or a bass line. Sometimes I'll have no plan at all. I'll just sit down and I will basically just start hitting notes and trying to find chords and maybe come up with like a groove or a melody or just try to hear something or just get the juices flowing. I've found that super useful at certain times if I'm trying to just come up with more material. But today I do sort of have a goal in mind. I'm going to try to take this tune that I recorded with a quintet a couple years ago, and it's an original tune of mine called Hopscotch, and I'm just going to play just a little snippet of it so you can hear a little bit of it. Okay, so this tune has an ostinato bass line at the beginning, and that just means a repeated bass line that's continuous. And so basically we're just down here. So that's the bass line, and I've doubled it in the piano just to give it a little bit more punch, so you've got bass and piano playing that together. And then I actually wrote out some specific chords on the piano, and I think I might change them slightly, but basically it's just like this. So that is kind of like the intro and like the beginning of the A section, which is like the first section of the tune where the melody comes in. And I was sort of brainstorming this tune a little bit earlier today and yesterday too, just thinking about how I wanted to approach the arrangement for the big band. I know for myself, writing for big band can be a little daunting just because you're going to have around anywhere from like 15 to 20 musicians that you can incorporate. And it's almost like handing a kid a box of like 64 Crayola crayons, and they have like a bunch of sheets of white paper, and they just start pulling crayons out, and they're just drawing circles, and then they grab another color and draw it. And in the end, every page is just like black because they just combine all the colors. It's easy to do that, I've found, with a big band, or anytime you're writing for more musicians, you know, you just have more options, and you have to find a way to like balance it and make it musical and make it something that you like. Because it's, the other thing is you may have a vision of a tune, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out with the quintet overall. And I just want to make sure that I can still be happy with it, even now that I'm going to be adding like 12 more musicians playing the tune in a new arrangement. Because I don't want to do just a strict arrangement of like exactly how I did it on the record before. So one thing that I found useful with that is trying to brainstorm, you know, what sort of arrangement I want. And there's a lot of things that come into that. One being like, what sort of mood or style do I want to come across with the music? You know, do I want it to be more like open and floaty, or do I want it to be like really driving in like high energy, or do I want it to be like super arranged and maybe like thematic and more developed, or do I want it to be like really straight ahead where it's just like melody solos? You know, all of these things come into play. And then after I decide that, then I can kind of decide what sort of instrumentation I want to use. And yeah, it's like I have this set instrumentation of the group, but a lot of people can double on different instruments. Like with saxophones, I can use, I can have the alto players play flute. I can have the tenor players play either like clarinet or soprano. I can have the bari player play bass clarinet. And then with the brass, the trumpets can play flugelhorn as well. And then the brass all have all sorts of different mutes to use. And then it's incorporating piano, guitar, and then drums. You know, the drummer can be using mallets, brushes, sticks, and you can get all different sounds with that. And then bass as well. We've got plucking, but also bowed. So all of these things come into play sort of at the same time. And I was thinking about this tune a little bit yesterday, and just thinking about how that ostinato thing repeats, and then the song kind of morphs into like where the melody comes in, and the hits and the harmony gradually change. So what I was thinking was, maybe instead of just playing that straight down, just like right from the beginning, I do want that same kind of like really forward driving, energetic movement to happen, but I don't want it to happen right at the start of the chart like it does with the quintet recording. What I'm going to try to do is think of it more of like a slower developed and like gradually unfolding idea, almost kind of like in a way as like you're opening a package that has like a bow and wrapping, and you like have to take off little pieces of it, and like gradually you open it, and then there's like tissue paper you gotta take out, and then be like different types of wrapping. I want it to like gradually unfold. I guess in a way too, I've thought about it with other songs. It's almost as like a sunrise. It's like, you know, you're starting with basically nothing. Like maybe it's just pitch black, and then gradually you'll notice the sky getting slightly lighter gray, or even like maybe like a bluish, and then gradually as the sun's coming up, more colors fill out, and then you can see the whole sun, and then eventually like the sky is just like pure blue. But it's cool how it's like super gradual, and I think if music can be somewhat like that, it can have the same effect. So it's not as if I'm making like a direct, like I'm thinking about a sunrise when I'm writing. It's just the same kind of feeling. I just want it to be a very gradual thing. Instead of like looking up and just being blinded by the sun, it's like you can watch a sunset over like a period of like 60 minutes or something like that. Before I turned the camera on, I actually started thinking about it, just so that I could have something of substance to share, because it can take a lot of just like sitting here quietly thinking, and it wouldn't make for a great video, I don't think. So it's like sitting, thinking about the tune and thinking about ways that I could gradually introduce the melody, the bass line, and just have like thematic development happening. So what I was thinking was maybe having the bass and bass clarinet, and also maybe one of the tenors kind of holding down that bass line. Rather than just having bass, it's kind of nice to have it doubled with different sounding instruments, just to give it sort of like a different feel, almost more of like a symphonic approach. Like in like a string orchestra, a lot of times you'll have like bassoon, bass clarinet, maybe bass trombone, or just like low brass, and like cellos also covering parts that like the bass are playing, just to give it, rather than just the bass sound on the bottom, you give it a little bit more color. So on that, I'm thinking definitely bass clarinet, and then the upright bass, and then maybe tenor, maybe like the second tenor. The nice thing about tenor and bass clarinet, that I know their second tenor and bass clarinet sit right next to each other, so it'd be easy for them to lock in. I usually try to avoid, if I can, having like one person on a part, especially in like the horns, just because it can be hard, and if they're not expecting it, they might not have a lot of confidence when they play the part. So I'm thinking bass and bass clarinet. And what I was thinking was maybe just hitting that first chord in most of the brass. And maybe just sitting there for a minute. Something like that, and doing like a syncopated rhythm on that. So like the rhythm is like 1, 2, 3, 1, ready, and just letting it kind of sit. So you felt that drive of the beginning, but now we have this bong, this chord that'll just kind of hit. And then that rhythm, I'm hearing it probably in like first and second trumpet, and then maybe like I'll have 2 flutes on that as well. I'm also thinking maybe drums not keeping like a really strict like time, but more of like an open kind of soloistic approach, but kind of keeping time going and keeping like just sort of like a fill, like free thing going, but so still keeping the pulse there, but not locked into a groove, more of like flowing. So we have drums are filling, and then I want to maybe, instead of going right back to the bass line, I'm going to hold there for a minute, and I want to do like a little bit of harmonic movement there, just like a little more motion. Like we settled on this chord for a second. Sorry. Right here. And now I want to take it somewhere. So I'm thinking, sorry, let's see. So I'm thinking about, I have this chord, and I can do like a ba da boo da boo da. So we have boo da ba da boo. So, okay, that could be this line. That could be in like the top two trumpets and then the flutes, and then the rest of the brass would kind of just fill out the chords. So you have this like melodic movement on the top, but this stable chord. Ba da ba da ba da. So we have. Okay, so from the top, maybe we would have. Oops, that's not right. Setting there for a minute, letting it sit, and then we're gonna move. Now I have to figure out how I want to land on that last chord. So basically, once I hit that first one, so the bass line is laying down like F sharp, dominant 7. We've got F sharp, C sharp, E, F sharp. And then in the harmony, I've got like a sus sound. So I've got the 4th, B, the 5th, 7th, and the 9th. So I'm basically taking that sound, and then I'm gonna move that down a whole step, and then down another whole step, and then I want to resolve down maybe a half step. So when I'm writing, and I actually came up with that just a little bit earlier today, just that movement. When I'm writing something like that, I'm not thinking, I'm gonna move a sus chord down in whole steps, and then I'm gonna move it down a half step. A lot of it is just experimenting with different chords until I'm finding the things that I like how they sound. And I don't think about what it is most of the time until after I do it. But I'm never trying to approach composition from like a harmonic standpoint. I'm trying to approach it purely from just an aural standpoint, from how I'm hearing it. So with that movement, it wasn't too jarring, but it was something that still gave us something interesting to listen to, but it kind of filled in the space from going right back to the ostinato line. So So what I'm doing too, I'm just kind of almost letting the song just sit there for a minute. And what I'm kind of hoping is that you hear that and you think like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder what's happening next. Versus like the actual tune, it's very like in your face. and it's kind of, so that's, as it's going, there's not as much surprise as like when you're landing on something like this, sitting there, maybe just playing that note, and then that's like it's coming to almost just like a pause or almost a stop, and you had that movement. It's like, oh, what's happening? Is there a bass line, or was that just that, you know, if somebody's hearing this for the first time, they might think that's just the start of the song and not like the actual bass line. So it's any way you can kind of create suspense and surprise and then develop it. So we're kind of setting up that idea, and then I was thinking right after we land down on that, we kind of hold, maybe let the horns stay crescendo, drums are still kind of filling, maybe brushes would be nice here, and then we're gonna go back to the, but this time I want to play it just a little bit longer before we settle on a chord. So we set up the idea, kind of developed it, and now I'm going to keep it going just a little bit longer. So we have I might just play it through to that second time and then sit on it. So we have 1, 2, 3. And then I was thinking I could do the same movement. So now when you repeat something, it gives the listener maybe a little bit more of a sense of satisfaction, because now they have something to grab onto where they something that they recognize, because it just happened, and it's kind of playing into their expectation in a way, because they now hear something and it's like, oh yeah, I just heard that, and maybe it'll be slightly different, and now I can kind of get involved and like be more engaged with the composition. And again, as I'm composing, I'm not actually thinking about that. That's just sort of my analysis after the fact. I'm just trying to come up with something that I like. I don't think ever try to write in a way that I hope the audience, or I think the audience will like. I do, sure, I hope people like what I write, but I think it's most useful and you can come up with your best stuff if you're writing purely for yourself and not, you know, for anyone else necessarily, because most likely if you like something and you're passionate about it and you do it as best that you can and in terms of like your vision, then other people will like it on their own. So I'm thinking about, once I come back to that, so I'm gonna play that and then play a little bit more of the bass line this time. Whoops. So it just happened, it'll happen twice that time. And then here, I'm gonna sit on that again. But this time, instead of going, I'm gonna maybe make a slightly bigger leap in the melody line there. That could be cool. Okay, so we have, once you get up, okay, so with that leap, I might want to fill in the gap just a little bit with something else. So I have, I may try to actually double that down the octave just to give it more, because sometimes if you just have the flutes and trumpets up high, it can feel like they're kind of just hanging out by themselves. But if you maybe double it down an octave, or I don't know if I want to put another harmony note below that quite yet. I want to keep it kind of open rather than trying to get it more dense. So let's see. Maybe putting a sixth below that. That could be an option. I think I might be leaning towards just like the octave below it though first. Okay, and then after that, I'll be going back to the... And now I have to decide if I want to stick with the ostinato or continue to break it up a little bit. I think I may want to keep breaking it up. I don't think I want to go right into the tune. So I want to find a way. I may play it just that first F sharp section. So we'll have. Maybe here, instead of moving down, maybe I'll find a way to move up. About that. Maybe I can stay there but create more energy just with something else repeated. Wow, that could be cool. So I'm just moving up like a whole step. Then maybe I could move down. Oh, that could be cool. I could just kind of extend that open section there. That could be something that could work, because that could maybe take me into a new space as well. Oh, okay. Well, so you can see I haven't even cracked my manuscript paper yet. A lot of times if I'm coming up with like an arrangement idea like this, you know, I definitely don't need to start writing down specific chords or lines or anything. as long as I can like remember the form. Sometimes I'll write down just like sort of like an outline of a form that I've made so far. But I'm confident that I can remember everything that I've come up with so far, or else I would be writing it down if it was getting too complicated. So I may try to like resolve this next little section that I'm working on, and then I might actually jump over to the computer and start putting stuff in finale, just sort of like an outline. I definitely won't do it in its like full arrangement yet, but as long as I get like the basic parts there, I know what's happening and I know where it's going, then I'll go back later and fill in chords and all that stuff. But yeah, so you can see it's a very slow process, but that's not a bad thing. It gives you a chance to like really get inside your own head and come up with something that is hopefully unique, but I think more importantly is moving to you and something that you find interesting. I saw a masterclass with Maria Schneider last year, and she asked the question, what makes music good? And the answer that I could come up with was it was that music would be one of two things. It would either move you like emotionally or however you can be moved, and the second thing was that it was interesting to listen to. I feel like when I listen to music and it has a combination of those two things, then that's how I pick like my favorite music. And so I guess when I write, I try to do that just naturally. So the more time I can spend and dedicate to the little things like just this opening thematic idea, then the more powerful and hopefully the more interesting then I think my arrangements are to listen to. So I think I may just stop it here because things may just slow down even more until I really decide where I want to take this intro and develop it. But that was just a little sneak peek of how I go about arranging music. Oh yeah, I want to play just a little bit more of the Quintet album. So this is a little further in. I think what I decided to do right when we did the recording session was have myself and the trumpet player, Matt Regan, just solo together, just because I thought it would be interesting. We didn't do that on any of the other tunes, and so we both just are doing an improvised solo just at the same time over the form, rather than like one at a time. So we're just trying to play off of each other and just make something happen in the moment. So check it out.